Mountain ranges reaching heights of more than 2,500 meters above sea level surround the Austrian city of Innsbruck in the state of Tyrol. To the south, the Tux Alps and Stubai Alps tower above the city. To the north, the valley is bounded by the northern chain of the Karwendel Range. High above Innsbruck's roofs, an internationally renowned area of about 4 hectares nestles between the rising hillsides. It is Europe's highest altitude zoo, home exclusively to animals of the Alpine region. Most importantly, rare and endangered species are bred and released here. Among them, curiosities that the inaccessible heights of the mountains usually keep hidden from view. Merging wilderness and zoo so that the transitions feel seamless is always a great challenge. Rarely does this integration succeed as perfectly as it does high above the roofs of Innsbruck. The idea of keeping wild animals here is far from new, however. The so-called Weierburg Castle at the Alpine Zoo's entrance looks back on centuries of history. An imperial zoological garden was erected here as early as the 16th century. But it wasn't until almost 400 years later that the revolutionary idea of keeping exclusively mountain animals in this historic place was realized. In 1962, the Alpine Zoo opened its gates for the first time. Hans Psener is regarded as the zoo's charismatic founding father. Throughout his life, he was successfully engaged in keeping and breeding alpine animals. Today, approximately 300,000 visitors visit the mountain animals each year. Under the management of directors like Helmut Pechlaner and Michael Martis, the zoo achieved international recognition and acknowledgement. Because the breeding and subsequent release of many endangered species makes the Alpine Zoo an indispensable gene pool. It's the beginning of December, and, as with many years, the big snowfalls are late in coming. For the bearded vulture, the Alpine Zoo's heraldic bird, it's a minor matter whether it snows or not. Its breeding season is always in the winter. At a size of more than a meter, the bearded vulture is the largest bird in the Alps and was exterminated in the wild at the beginning of the 20th century. The Tyrolean couple is likely to be the oldest in the world. Both male and female were born in the early 60s and produced more than 29 descendants. Once an egg is laid, it is usually removed from the nesting space and replaced with a plaster dummy. Thus, the vulture's natural nesting behavior continues uninterrupted, while the valuable egg can be hatched under controlled conditions. One of the incubators is right in the zoo director's office. It takes several weeks to find out whether a young bearded vulture will actually hatch from the light-colored egg. The Alps' quintessential symbolic animal is the ibex. What most people don't know is that the ibex was systematically wiped out during the last 400 years, leaving only about 50 to 100 animals in the Italian Gran Paradiso Mountains. Only the Alpine Zoo's program of breeding ibex and releasing them into the wild has preserved them in the Alps. There are about 6,500 animals in Austria today. The zoo's modern ibex installation was completed in June 2006. It accommodates the distinctive Bovitz climbing preferences as much as possible. The winter months are also the mating season for the ibex. Now the fights between rival males die down to save their energy during this time of hardship. The wild animals of the high mountain regions have to adapt to many extremes. Avalanches are a constant danger, taking even alert ibexes' lives time and time again. Hardly anyone knows that this animal was once a native of the Alps too, the moose or European elk. It is the largest member of the deer family and is generally associated with Canada, North America or Northern Europe. Nevertheless, its existence in Tyrol up until about 500 AD is certain. And within the Alpine Zoo, the European elk can be admired in its former habitat again today. Another prominent inhabitant of the mountains is the Eurasian lynx. He usually surveys the goings-on below from the comfort of his lookout tree. In the wild, these up to 1.2 meters cats are as extremely shy as they are rare. No more than 120 lynxes are estimated to live in the entire Alpine region. The zoo has participated in the European Breed Registry. Many animals use camouflage to protect themselves from predators' eyes. The mountain hare is a classic example. Its fur is brown during the summer months, but in winter it turns snow white, except for the tips of its ears, which makes little difference to a lynx that is quite capable of spotting him at a distance of up to 300 meters. Lynx are excellent hunters. Their diet ranges from deer to mouse, and they require about 1.5 kilograms of meat per day. In the Alpine Zoo, the mountain hares share a theme aviary with the bearded vultures and the white-winged snowfinch. Despite its name, the snowfinch is a sparrow rather than a true finch. It remains throughout the year in the high mountain regions above the timberline and can even be spotted at 3,500 meters above sea level. About the size of a common sparrow, the snowfinch is extremely hardy and feeds on insects and seeds. The rock ptarmigan is another of the mountain region's skilled survivalists. Like the mountain hare, it changes its color with the seasons. Its stealth plumage provides excellent camouflage during the winter. Except for its claws, its legs are entirely feathered, a mark of all grouse. During the warm season, the rock ptarmigan feeds on insects and berries, while in winter it also takes shoots, buds and flower clusters, such as from this common hazel. The Alpine Zoo tries to provide the rock ptarmigan with near-natural conditions concerning its diet too. Sooner or later, winter makes itself known, and it becomes clear that this is Europe's highest altitude zoo. The chamois endure snow and frost effortlessly. In the wild, they roam even above the timberline. Harsh winters, however, often drive them back into the mountain forest zones, where it is somewhat easier to find plants to eat. A dense coat protects them from the cold. The Wisent, or European bison, weighs up to 1,000 kilograms and resists even the toughest winters. Yet it never would have survived without the help of gene pools. During World War I, Wisent were almost wiped out. Thanks to their being kept in game preserves since the 19th century, however, there was a captive stock from which to establish a breeding program. Today there are 24 Wisent herds in the wild, 19 of which are in Russia. The two largest herds, however, containing 400 animals apiece, roam the Białowieża National Park in Poland. The Alpine Zoo is significantly involved in the European Conservation Breeding Programme for the Wisent too. Innsbruck's surrounding mountains are always ready for another dramatic weather change, and even the fiercest onslaught of winter can melt away when a foehn wind brings warm air and thaw. The ducks are quickly discovering ice-free zones and enjoying the mild temperatures. And even the goosander grow active again. They are noticeably larger than normal ducks. Visitors from northern countries, many goosander are only temporary winter guests. With the temperatures rising, goosander gather at ice-free rivers and streams. Only a few will remain here to breed. Most of them migrate north again. Several weeks have passed since the bearded vulture egg was placed into the incubator at 37 degrees Celsius. Now the egg is tested to see whether it contains an embryo. Zoo director Martis screens the egg. Unfortunately, all was in vain. The egg was not fertilized. Since the bearded vulture is still brooding over the plaster egg, there is still time to find a substitute chick. The mother should be able to accept another bearded vulture baby as her own. The Haringsee Owl and Raptor Station near Vienna is able to help, and a transport to Innsbruck is quickly arranged. A professional keeper tends to the bearded vulture chick throughout the trip. The young vulture needs to be fed raw meat several times a day. About 5 hours later, the delicate cargo arrives in the Alpine Zoo. It will soon be obvious whether the experiment succeeds, and the old bearded vulture couple accepts the adoptive chick. The plaster egg must be removed very carefully. Then the small chick is put in its place in the nest. These are the trickiest moments of the entire operation. It seems to be a total success. The adult birds accept the chick and immediately start to tend to it. Bearded vultures are highly specialized scavengers. Apart from meat, they feed mostly on bones. Even the chicks start out in life already capable of digesting this unusual diet. Spring is clearly coming to the Alpine Zoo. It is time to take the snakes out of the refrigerator. They spent several weeks in chilled torpor under controlled conditions. Now they are warmed up again before they are released into the Alpine Zoo's outdoor enclosure. Some of them, like the horned viper, are quite poisonous, even to humans. Horned viper's presence in the wild in Austria is limited to isolated populations in the state of Carinthia. There is no scientific evidence of its natural occurrence in Tyrol. When the frosty nights are finally past and the outdoor enclosures occupied again, the Alpine Zoo's visitors return in force. The common European adder can be found throughout all of Austria, except Vienna and the state of Burgenland. The heartland of its habitat lies in the Alpine foothills and the Alps. Accordingly, the adder is well adapted to low temperatures. It's even been observed at 2,500 meters above sea level. It is mating season. Adders will sometimes give birth to litters of more than 10 snakes. The common European adder bears live young rather than laying eggs. Every year, the Alpine Zoo enjoys breeding successes with this species too. By the end of March and the beginning of April, the marmots are back again. They are genuine hibernators who outlast the cold season in their frost-free burrows. Although marmots are quite common in the Alps, breeding them in zoos isn't easy. And while the Alpine Zoo specializes in breeding mountain animals, for some reason it's had no luck with marmots for years. With the endangered lynx, the zoo is more successful. Almost every year it welcomes a new birth with 1 to 3 cubs per litter. Their mother suckles them for about 3 months. Since 2005, the Innsbruck Alpine Zoo has taken part in the European Breed Registry for Endangered Species. And every year, several young animals are given to other zoos and wildlife parks that are also breeding lynx. Meanwhile, snow and ice are melting in the higher mountain regions too. And despite spring being a little slow to arrive here, the icy brooks and streams feeding the Inn River are full of life. It's mating season for the grayling, a characteristic fish species of the Inn River. The grayling requires cold, oxygen-rich water with plenty of strong currents. These conditions haven't been easy to find here during the last decades. As early as 1995, the Innsbruck Alpine Zoo and the Tyrolean Fisheries Association aligned forces in a joint venture to support the population and reproduction of grayling in the Inn River. This includes the conservation of natural spawning waters. In the fish farm of Tower, there are intensive efforts to multiply the Inn grayling population under controlled conditions and as carefully as possible. The process begins with the so-called expression of the eggs from the female fish. Each female may yield up to 5,000 eggs. The male's sperm is added to fertilize the eggs. Intensive care is indispensable to guarantee a successful hatch. Highly specialized workers evaluate the eggs and sort out defective ones to avoid dangerous fungus infections. Individual eggs are between 3 and 4 millimeters in diameter. It takes several weeks for an egg to develop into free-swimming fish spawn. This is a particularly tricky phase for the fish farm because it's almost impossible to meet the high water quality requirements of thousands of young graylings in captivity. All efforts devoted by the Tyrolean Fisheries Association and the Alpine Zoo serve the ultimate purpose of releasing the Inn graylings into their natural habitat. Every year, tens of thousands of them are returned to the Inn River. Sections of the river that offer the best possible conditions must be selected. The velocity of the local current and the structure of the ground are of primary importance in a successful introduction of the young fish. Given ideal conditions, graylings can grow over 10 years old. However, only a few will ever make it that far, as the young fish face numerous natural enemies. Among them, predators like trout, for example. Trout thrive in similar river habitats and are extremely fast and skillful hunters. At only a few centimeters long, the young grayling's chances of survival are slim, and many of them simply end up as fish food. Nevertheless, some manage to survive. Even so, the females need 3 years to grow to sexual maturity, when they will finally be able to produce new offspring. The young fish are also threatened from above. The goosander, a member of the Anatidae family, like ducks, geese and swans, can dive up to 4 meters while hunting for small fish. It feeds its chicks with them too. The goosander is a rare breeding bird in Austria. At the Inn River, it is a rare guest, and while its sizable flocks of chicks is always hungry, even this crowd poses no serious threat to the fish spawn. From the second day of their lives, the chicks are excellent swimmers. A single brood can contain more than 10 siblings who follow their mother for several weeks. The European pond turtles have emerged from their winter rest too, and are enjoying the mild spring temperatures. It is not an import from tropical or subtropical regions, but a genuine native, and its natural occurrence in several parts of Austria is scientifically validated. Today its greatest population lives in the wetlands of the Danube and the Morava River. Centuries ago, however, this turtle also lived in the many bodies of water in the mountain regions. The European wildcat is one of the rarest and most elusive forest dwellers. Over the past 100 years, it has almost disappeared from wide stretches of its former habitat. Since 1984, there have been efforts, especially in Germany, to resettle the wildcat in suitable habitats. Its breeding in zoos is of critical importance. The Innsbruck Alpine Zoo makes a significant contribution. "20 animals bred here have already been released into the wild. The Austrian wildcat platform was established in 2008. The Innsbruck Alpine Zoo is an active participant in this wildcat re-establishment program. Surveys are currently locating suitable wildcat habitats in Austria. Parts of the Thyatal National Park, as well as areas within the states of Carinthia and Styria, appear particularly promising. The wildcat requires untouched forest areas that are as secluded as possible. It needs privacy and space to hunt and raise its offspring in peace. Each wildcat litter usually contains between 4 and 6 kittens. During the first 1.5 months of their lives, they are suckled by their mother. Playfully, they develop the hunting skills they will need to live independently. Apart from mating season, wildcats are loners and keep to themselves. The characteristic cries of the corncrake aren't warning about an approaching wildcat. They are mating calls. This peculiar bird is a member of the family Rallidae and has become extremely rare in Austria. It requires low-intensity meadows with tall grass. The corncrake is a migratory bird that spends the winter in Africa and returns to its breeding habitat in May. The Alpine Zoo is always proud when a hatch succeeds. The newborn chicks, entirely black at first, are sensitive chargers. They are precocial birds that always keep close to their mother. The chicks are easily chilled by cold and moisture and need to be warmed time and again by their mother. As most chicks are born by the end of May, they aren't given much time to grow up in the wild. Wild corncrakes return to their tropical winter quarters as early as August, covering a distance of up to 7,000 kilometers. In 1996, a state-of-the-art installation was built for a primarily nocturnal rodent that most of us never get to see on land, let alone underwater in the wild: the European beaver. The beaver is extremely rare and shy and became extinct in Austria in the 19th century. The first resettlement efforts began in 1970 on the Bavarian side of the Inn River. Thanks to the successful resettlement program and ongoing protection, beavers have also returned to the wetlands of the Danube and the Morova River. These rodents weigh up to 30 kilograms and are exclusive herbivores that devour a considerable bulk of bark and leaves. Further research to understand their behavior more precisely is required. The Innsbruck Alpine Zoo is not only an attraction for visitors interested in nature, but also a place of science. A biologist from the University of Natural Resources and Applied Life Sciences in Vienna has tagged a beaver with a transmitter. It doesn't restrict the beaver's natural behavior in any way. The transmitter sends essential data about the beaver's movements and its behavior underwater. Additional video recordings supplement the scientific research. The zoo provides the advantage of making the beaver's sleeping caves accessible, which are unapproachable in the wild. All data can be fed into a computer on location and evaluated immediately. The Alpine Zoo's research delivers essential insights concerning the wild beaver's needs and aids the protection of this endangered species. Thanks to the successful care of its adoptive parents, the young bearded vulture chick grew up splendidly. He is now able to feed himself without help. In just a few weeks, he will be able to provide for himself completely on his own. Then it will be time to set him free. The ibex's time has come already. Every year, several representatives from the gene pool of the Alpine Zoo are released into their natural surroundings. 233 in all between 1987 and 2009. The chosen ibexes are usually between 1 and 3 years old. They seem to know instinctively that they are the center of attention today, and biologist Dirk Ulrich starts on his ibex hunt, armed with a tranquilizer gun. Now they won't feel any further stress as they are transported and prepared for their release, which includes the implantation of a microchip. A last blood sample is taken in the final examination. They are placed in safe transport crates, and it's off to the waiting pickup trucks. The ibexes aren't travelling far this year. Their final destination is only about 40 kilometers from Innsbruck in the Obernberg Valley near the Brenner mountain pass. The exact location of their release lies about 1,500 meters above sea level. The best way to get there is by helicopter. It's a time-consuming process that requires adequate manpower before the crates can be safely lowered and their latches opened. Safe and sound, the young ibexes have arrived at their new home, the Obernberg Valley between Mount Eisenspitze and the Tribulauen Massif. Here they'll spend the rest of their lives in freedom. Far less spectacular, but just as meaningful, is another field study. The secluded meadows of the Lech Valley are home to an animal that is almost unique in Austria. At dusk, they leave their hiding places. It's the so-called natterjack toad, one of Austria's rarest amphibians. Austria contains only 2 isolated populations, one in the Waldviertel in the state of Lower Austria and the other in the Lech Valley. In cooperation with the state of Tyrol, the local natterjack population is to be studied to ensure its adequate protection. The tadpoles develop in the shallow ponds of the Lech River's wetlands. As part of this important species protection project, additional man-made spawning ponds will be created to provide these endangered amphibians with the best possible conditions for development. Natterjacks grow hardly bigger than 10 centimeters, and their most striking feature is a light line down the middle of their backs. 6 o'clock in the morning. The city of Innsbruck is still asleep. In the Alpine Zoo, the bearded vultures are just waking up. Dirk Ulrich and Werner Fatzi have already been up for quite some time. It's the adopted bearded vulture's day of release, and there are lots of preparations yet to be made. First, the young bird has to be caught. He is about 3 months old. The old bearded vulture couple took good care of him. Without much fuss, the young bearded vulture allows Dirk to pick him up and carry him away. The young bird weighs about 4 kilograms. The transport box is waiting in the car. The young vulture will calm down quickly in the darkness and remember little of the journey to his new home in the Hohe mountain range. Since 1974, the Innsbruck Alpine Zoo has bred a total of 33 bearded vultures and released 13 of them into the wild. The arrival of the young bird in Malnitz in the state of Carinthia is met with enthusiasm. A large number of visitors gathered to witness the event. Before his release, the young bearded vulture is marked so he can be identified in the future. Some of his primary feathers are bleached with hydrogen peroxide. Each bird is individually marked according to an established system. The marking will remain visible for the next 18 months. After the vulture's next molt, when his old feathers are replaced by new ones, the mark will vanish. The final part of the vulture's journey is by horse carriage. Not for nostalgic reasons, but because of the local ban on driving motorized vehicles. The Hohe National Park is known for its unspoilt nature. A music band is a rare exception here. Once more, the young bearded vulture is celebrated and given a farewell. From this point, it's possible to continue only on foot. The exhausting ascent up the rock face takes about half an hour. The final destination is a prepared niche where the bearded vulture is to be released. He will likely remain in his artificial eyrie for several weeks before taking to the air. The Bearded Vulture project has become the Hohe National Park's most important image promoter. As of 2010, there are about 20 breeding couples producing offspring throughout the Austrian Alps. During the summer months, Europe's highest altitude zoo enjoys especially large numbers of visitors. The brown bears take it in stride. There are plenty of opportunities in their installation to withdraw from the visitors' curious gaze, if they want to. Water is vital for all tenants of the zoo. But it's especially important for brown bears since they always enjoy taking a bath. Today, only a few wild brown bears remain in the Alpine region. All too frequently, they fall victim to more or less legal shootings. Brown bears feed mainly on plants. Animal food accounts for scarcely a third of their diet. Their strength is impressive, and an old Russian saying claims, "A bear is stronger than 6 men and smarter than 12." The grey wolves are popular zoo animals too. Because they live in an almost wholly unfettered natural environment here, their social behaviour can be studied intimately. Grey wolves adhere to a strict social hierarchy between more dominant and weaker members of the pack. The Alpine Zoo doesn't limit itself to the traditional well-known animals though. There are rarities here too, even matchless ones. The Innsbruck Alpine Zoo is the only zoo in the world that keeps the wall creeper. These little birds are approximately 15 centimeters long and have a thin, bent beak and red-wing feathers. The wall creeper is profoundly specialized in both its habitat and diet needs. It lives exclusively in moist canyons and rock faces, where it proves to be an expert climber and hardly ever keeps still for a second. It can be found as high as 3,000 meters above sea level, constantly searching for small insects and spiders in the harsh habitats of the high mountain reaches. The Alpine Zoo has to go to great lengths to satisfy the exacting demands of this small bird. Every day its own individual keeper is busy gathering a varied natural diet for the wall creeper. This laborious method of gathering food involves beating tree branches with bushes with a pole and collecting the smallest insects in a funnel net below. The catch varies with the weather and takes time to gather. The prey accumulates at the tapered end of the net and is occasionally emptied into plastic tubs. This procedure alone makes successful wall creeper keeping extremely difficult. They are picky chargers who require a varied natural diet and large quantities of it. Although these birds weigh barely 20 grams, they have an active metabolism and need to eat frequently throughout the day. The Innsbruck Alpine Zoo is rightly proud of being the only zoo in the world that successfully maintains a wall creeper installation. The European otter seems unimpressed by the water's chill. Otters remain active in both summer and winter and are always looking for their main source of food, fish. The Alpine Zoo has a close association with the European otter. Europe's first successful captive breeding of this species occurred here in 1978. As it has so many times before and since, the Alpine Zoo functioned as a gene pool for an endangered species. Science and research are the main purpose for keeping this odd bird too. It is the so-called northern bald ibis, a member of the ibis family that lived in the Alpine region until the 16th century. Today, only a few independent wild colonies remain in Morocco, Turkey, and Syria. Northern bald ibis are about 70 centimeters long and breed in colonies. This spacious installation caters as much as possible to their needs. The naturalistic installation of the northern bald ibis also harbors a hidden guest, the Eurasian scops owl. This species grows to barely 20 centimeters and is a native of the southern Alps. It feeds mainly on insects like grasshoppers. The northern bald ibis has been bred in the Innsbruck Alpine Zoo since 1965. Insects, snails, and smaller vertebrates constitute the diet of this bizarre ibis species. In 1988, the Alpine Zoo coordinated a Europe-wide conservation breeding program that continues today. It soon becomes clear that the year has passed its climax, and the signs of autumn are everywhere. This Vicent calf was born in September. At birth, it already weighed 40 kilograms. Walking still presents quite a challenge, and the calf never wanders more than a few meters from its mother, who offers protection and, most important of all, food. The riches of autumn draw many wild creatures to the Alpine Zoo as well. Common blackbirds appreciate the ripe elderberries. With the first frosty nights, the leaves start changing color. Silence and tranquility settle across the Alpine Zoo, and, just as in the wild, the animals seem to sense the approach of winter. Once the first snowflakes fall in late autumn, the mountain hare is ready to change into his winter coat again. And as every year, the bearded vultures start building their nest during the cold and snow, doing their part to make sure that Europe's highest altitude zoo continues to be what it has always been, a gene pool of the Alps.